My sister-in-law, who is my husband's younger sister, and I are both adopted. My sister-in-law was adopted as an infant and I was adopted through foster care at the age of 7 officially, but I found my family at the age of 6. Sister-in-law brought up us both being adopted before and asked questions that I didn't mind answering. She hadn't realised I was adopted through foster care, and for a little while she didn't think we could talk about it because we came from very different adoption stories. A couple of years ago, sister-in-law, mother-in-law and father-in-law reached out to her birth family and made contact. Then they started to speak about the unfairness of the adoption, severed all legal ties to her birth family, and from there, the three held this view that sister-in-law should have always been in the family. Still, adoption wasn't the right thing to do, at least not adoption as in the US standard of adoption. Once this realization was made, sister-in-law decided she needed to help open my eyes. My husband told her to leave me out of it, and I would never feel different about my adoption. Sister-in-law didn't like that, and she went behind my husband's back so we could talk it out. I told her she would never change my mind and that I would always be glad I was adopted. I told her my only wish was to forget everything to do with my birth family. She told me I lost all connection to them. I told her that was good and I wanted no connection to these people. She told me I should be glad I knew who I really was. I told her being an idiot is not who I am. For people who will wonder, that is what I was called for the first 5 years of my life while I was with birth relatives, and this includes my birth mother. I told them knowing them doesn't mean I know who I am. I didn't even know my old legal name until I went into foster care. We took time out from her for a while, but it meant missing out on family functions on his side, so we decided to have minimal contact. My husband steps in when he's there. But during a family wedding, sister-in-law took a moment when I was alone to approach me, and she started to bring up adoption, so I walked away without saying a word. I ignored her and acted like she wasn't there. This bothered her a lot. Mother-in-law and father-in-law told her she should let up and leave me be, but she came after my husband, said I was rude and had no right to walk away from her like that. A couple of extended family members, 2 old aunts of my husband's, said sister-in-law complained so much that it spoiled the wedding and I should have handled the incident better. My husband said I did nothing wrong, but I hate the added drama from it. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, and she's exhibiting the classic signs of being insecure with her decision, so she's trying to get validation of her decision by making other people make the same decision around her, so she thinks this will make it more valid when she decides. I would communicate with her in as few words as possible. What do I say or do to make you stop talking? Oh dear, I would have freaked out on the sister-in-law if that were me. My entire life has been wrecked over and over again by the notation that biological family trumps all other families. I'm incredibly tired of people who don't understand these complex situations inserting their ignorant opinions. Send a group text to all of sister-in-law's supporters saying, "Why are you so interested in my abusers? This is obsessive and intrusive badgering." So the elderly aunts had their wedding experience ruined because sister-in-law kept complaining to them and they're upset about how you handled it. LOL, seriously? What the heck, OP? What are those relatives drinking? You handled it perfectly, and I suggested the 2 aunties that it might be time for a dementia screening. What are those relatives drinking? A drink called Don't Rock the Boat. Sister-in-law has the family trained to believe everyone else must adapt to her, and anyone who doesn't is at fault for any fallout she causes. The audacity of sister-in-law expecting you, OP, to the point of bullying, to feel the same way she does is a sign of a more significant issue she has. That the family expects you to sacrifice for sister-in-law's feelings is an even more substantial problem. This is one of many things that's gone like this, but in dealing with it, keep to discussing behavior. This isn't about the topic anymore, that's just a distraction to avoid the bigger issues here. My pre-tween daughter Elsie has recently started to make mornings more difficult by throwing a fit when we asked her to get dressed for school. We've tried setting her clothes out the night before, but she still makes an issue out of it, and she doesn't want to sleep in her clothes, so that's not an option either. My wife leaves for work before me, so I'm usually the one who must deal with the tantrums in the morning. I woke Elsie up and she refused to get dressed as always. I wasn't in the mood to deal with her BS and didn't have the energy to fight with her about it, so I told her that it was okay and I'd just take her to school in her pajamas. She looked pretty shocked because I don't think it was the outcome she expected, but the rest of the morning went a lot smoother than usual. We got in the car and she was quieter than usual, so I could tell she wasn't sure what to think. But after a while of driving, I guess the realization set in and she told me she wanted to go home and change. I told her she'd already decided and I wasn't driving her back home now. She started freaking out, saying she wanted me to drive back home and didn't want to go to school in her pajamas. But I wasn't turning the car around, so we arrived at school and she eventually went in. After my wife came home from collecting her from school, she looked angry. She didn't say anything in front of Elsie, but as expected, she went off on me later in the evening. She said I'd embarrassed her and made us look like bad parents who can't be bothered to dress our daughter. I told her I'm sure Elsie isn't the first child to go to school in pajamas and it's not the end of the world. And she wears regular clothes every other day, so one day in pajamas isn't going to make everyone think we're bad parents. She told me she thought it was a cruel thing to do to Elsie, but in my opinion, it was harmless and taught her a lesson. Not the idiot. Your daughter was testing boundaries and she learned the limit. If you'd turned around, she might have done the same the next day and started a new pattern. By sticking to your decision in a harmless environment when your daughter was in no danger, she learned a lesson about the consequences of her actions. Plenty of kids always show up in pajamas, costumes and funky, cool, not funky, smelly clothes. As a teacher, I see kids come to school in pajamas all the time, and it's not even an issue. Kids will come dressed in the most random clothes in elementary school, and that's part of the joy of being that young. Hopefully, now the OP's daughter will consider what she wants to wear to school before leaving the house. At her age, she should be choosing the clothes she wants to wear, so when you said, "We've tried setting her clothes out the night before," I hope that "we" was mainly her. You didn't think ahead. You should have put her clothes in a bag and brought them to school. Depending on her personality, she might not live down the day Elsie wore PJs to school, and her peers probably have memories like elephants. Also, start getting her up 15 minutes earlier. That's how most parents handle it. You know this isn't a common problem, right? Dude, you are the idiot. This is a young child and not a toddler we're discussing. Yikes, my goodness, OP, you are not the idiot. At her age, your daughter is, in my opinion, a bit old for throwing daily tantrums over clothes. I fully thought this was a 4-year-old until I went back and looked at the age. Also, it would be one thing if your wife was upset because your daughter spent the day embarrassed and uncomfortable with her clothing choices, but it seems like your wife's main concern is with optics and how this choice reflects on her as a parent. My wife, 32, and I, 33 male, have been together for 5 years and married for 1. She and my mother do and don't get along. So my mother is African American and I'm the product of an affair with a white male, so she doesn't like or trust white people. My wife doesn't mind that as she's Hispanic mixed and white. My mom and my wife have a neutral relationship, which means if you put them in a room, they'll mainly sit there and kind of ask about each other a little, but they have no common interests. So my mother has warmed up to her more over the years and even let her use the family ring. My wife is 8, almost 9 months pregnant, and we've been discussing labor and after labor. Her mom and sister are in the delivery room, not me, which is fine, it's her body. She's always said that from the beginning. So then we talked about after labor. She said she only wanted her mom and her sisters to be allowed to visit. I asked what about my mom. She said no after 3 weeks. I asked her why, and she said she wanted to ensure my mom didn't bring anything to our baby. I told her that her mom works around kids. She's a teacher and your sister owns a daycare run out of her house, so I don't think you're worried about germs. She just said that she didn't want my mom to see the baby. I said if it were the delivery room, then fine, or even the hospital. I just asked to let her see the baby. She said no, so I tried to negotiate that I bring the baby over to see my mom. She also said no. She's not talking to me at the moment. So, am I the idiot? Who is with her during the birth is fully her choice, but after all that, who gets to see your baby in the following days should be a decision you make together as equal parents. That being said, some details have been left out. It's a bit worrying she doesn't want her husband and father of her child there for the birth. Have you annoyed her in some way? If so, I can see your mother's exclusion from seeing the baby falling under that umbrella too. Either way, it's an unfair game your wife is playing. A child isn't a trump card. If your telling of events is entirely accurate from her point of view, then not the idiot. But if there's something else behind it, then maybe you are the idiot. I had the same feelings. Someone in this story is not being entirely open and honest. If the husband hasn't left out any details, then the wife has an issue she's not communicating. Maybe she's worried her baby won't be clearly mixed when it comes out, or the wrong mix. Considering melanin can take a while to kick in with babies too, there is a high likelihood the kid is coming out pale. It very clearly seems to me that OP is leaving out important context here about his mother and is describing her with rose-colored glass. My mother-in-law keeps making passive-aggressive comments about how my baby may not be her son's if he doesn't look Mexican enough. I'm having the same convo with my husband about how I'm concerned my child will be treated differently because his mom doesn't like me and doesn't want a pale red-headed affair baby. These are real fears. I feel like OP is not addressing that part. I, 24 female, recently returned to my hometown after being away for college and work. My grandma often hosts potluck parties where her 3 kids and their families can hang out. I'm a good baker, and the couple of times I brought baked goods over, I got lots of compliments, especially from the kids. I promised to make a cupcake for every kid, 8 kids all under 9, for the potluck we had last week. The adults would get a £2 cake to be shared. I elaborately decorated the cupcakes and made sure I made enough. I didn't have the energy to make extras. On the day of the party, one of my cousins brought her boyfriend and his kid Gina, female pre-tween, over unannounced. Gina saw the cupcakes each kid got and wanted one too, so my cousin brought her to me to ask for a cupcake. I apologized and told them that all the cupcakes were spoken for and that she was welcome to have a slice of the £2 cake as it was the same flavor. Gina said she wanted the pretty cupcake. My cousin said I should just give her one because she was sure at least one of the kids would not show up. Again, I refused, saying that I promised all the kids a cupcake and that I would feel awful if anyone had to miss out on the promised cupcake. My cousin then walked away with Gina. She was right though, as one of our cousin's girls, Amy, pre-tween, was sick and couldn't come. However, her dad and older brother did, and the brother asked if he could take the cupcake back home to Amy, and I said yes. My cousin and Gina were in the kitchen when I brought the cupcake inside to pack it up for Amy. When they saw me packing the cake, they asked about it, and I said it was for Amy, who was sick. Pictures from the party were recently posted. Many parents posted pictures of their kids with my cupcake. My cousin sent me a message telling me that Gina was really upset that Amy, who wasn't even at the party, got a cupcake while she didn't. She said I was an idiot for hurting a little girl's feelings. I think I did the right thing by giving Amy the cupcake as I promised her one. Still, Gina was right there at the party. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. All the cupcakes were spoken for. Your cousin was essentially asking you to punish Amy for being sick by giving her cupcake to Gina instead. Gina was an add-on, and as such she was welcome to enjoy the cake, but not to steal a cupcake that had been promised and designated for someone else. I disagree. You are the idiot. This is just so weird. I can't imagine a little girl seeing a cupcake and me not at least promising her one next time, telling her I didn't know she would be here so I'd make her 2 next time to make up for it. I also couldn't imagine not at least making some extra cupcakes that were just iced and less elaborate. It seems weird to bring something when there's not enough for everyone and limit it to people under 9. You even made a cake with the same flavor. You also could have given the little girl the sick kid's cupcake and made the sick one a new cupcake when she felt better. It's a little kid watching everyone else get something special. She didn't cry or throw a tantrum. She was sad and disappointed, which would have made me feel horrible and do anything to rectify it. This is the perfect illustration as to why you do not bring surprise guests. While yes, it's generally good practice to make extras just in case, it's not a requirement, and it's not. My parents had another baby that was stillborn. His name was James. My parents consistently talked about him. He was included in family portraits, where one of us held the only picture we had of him, Christmas cards, etc. He was mentioned at every single big event. My brothers and I have tried to tell our parents we're uncomfortable with the picture. Also, we don't want it included all the time. My mom always insists and tells us that James is family. She also gets upset if I refer to Christopher as my eldest brother, or if one of us says we have 2 brothers. We tried to explain we were born after James and don't have the attachment she does. This has led to several arguments, and usually it isn't worth it, so we just give in and say fine, she can bring the photo and talk about James there. Christopher is getting married. After talking with his fiancée, Lily, they both said the picture couldn't come. They said they'd include James in the program alongside Lily's grandmother, who passed as a sort of guest we're thinking of on this special day, but there will be no detailed essay that our mom usually includes on the holiday cards to memorialize James. She got very upset by both things and called them insensitive. They are sticking to their guns. My mom was venting to me, and I told her I agreed with Christopher and Lily. I said that James wasn't there. We have no connection to him, and she can't keep shoehorning him in. She can't expect us to make everything about him. Obviously, she won't ever be over James's death, but it's time to stop making him front and center. I also added that none of us view James as our brother. She began to cry and left. My dad is angry with me beyond belief, as are some other family members. My brothers are on my side, but I need some unbiased perspective. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your parents needed therapy to deal with this about 30 years ago. Of course, losing James was very hard for them. It is very sad. But this enduring clinging to that is not normal or healthy. If they want to do something to remember him on his birthday, okay, maybe. But not on every occasion, not when none of your siblings ever knew him. She's made it more about the potential life James could have had than the actual lives her living kids do have. I have a feeling she'll insist the first grandson is called James. Yikes, someone really needs to put a firm foot down before that suggestion comes up, because it would get so messy. The wedding is about the bride and groom. Your mother needs to come to terms with the fact that she had 4 children in her lifetime, but for yours, you've only ever had 2 brothers. It's not normal to make children hold a photo of a dead baby in family photos. It's not normal to send pictures of a dead baby with Christmas cards. Someone should have intervened with your parents years ago. But at the very least, now that you all have to confront the issue, it's time to get them some help.